Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fringe podcast presented by Imperial Golf. I am Duke, John, JT. I remember you. I think I remember you.
Did you really forget my name?
No, I didn't forget your name. You just haven't been here for a few episodes, so I was...
That is true.
I was mocking your absence. That's what
Yes.
I was doing. Actually, you don't know this because you weren't here, but every week I'd be like, and Brandon has the night off, and they went, no, that's Brandon. So...
Twice with two different people, actually.
I think it was more. I think it was...
There was a third.
I think it was...
Transformed.
Yeah, I think it was at least 3.
You've gone through some transformations.
And then we made the same complaint that none of them had your posture. So
That's true. We did.
I do try and have good posture.
You don't try.
no, you're
the
successful.
only way to tell you and Chris
The
Bell
only human.
apart is your posture. Otherwise, you look
I
exactly
have the same
same.
accent. I'm also like 6'6".
That's true. I never thought about
Otherwise
it. They are basically the same
indistinguishable.
person.
Your
Yeah.
accent is spot on.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like,
Nailed it.
Oh my gosh.
or is it Chris? Or is Chris just secretly a closet Midwesterner?
I mean, he hasn't
Des
left.
Moines, Iowa.
So
Yeah.
much as he complains about it,
Yeah.
Well, he also
you know I'm
complains
right,
about
Chris.
home, though, right? So, I mean, where's he going to go at
He
some
just
point?
complains.
he fits in because all Midwesterners complain about something.
Well, that's
Just
true.
Depends on the time of
Oh,
year.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
The
true.
damn Packers.
Those gosh darn beers.
Or the Bears,
Gosh
if we're being
darn.
honest. More the
Yeah.
Bears. Yeah. Packers generally don't disappoint.
Vikings
like
find
the
a way
Bears
to
do.
lose every Sunday.
Yeah. Packers doing
Gotta
pretty
be
good
one of
this
them.
year, actually.
I was going to say, we just named 2 teams that are doing just fine.
And
I was
Yeah.
going to say, yeah.
Broncos look like they're going to make the playoffs, too.
Yeah, despite
Maybe.
their performance last night, but
We'll see.
oh well.
We'll see.
They'll make it.
The Bears continue to find ways to ruin good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Or not utilize at very
He had a
least.
strong start, but
Yeah.
definitely faded as the season went on.
Did they?
That's just what shows you
Did-
how
They beat some
important
pretty bad teams,
upper
right?
management and
Yeah.
Hey,
ownership.
they almost snuck one on Green Bay.
True.
you know.
Was that a 1-point game, I think?
Yep.
Came down to a field goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leave it to Chicago to ruin an all-time talent like Caleb.
Yep.
Well, and speaking of the Broncos, how about that story about the Jets and Jerry Jeudy? Did you hear about that?
Oh, with their owner's kid?
Yeah, their
Oh, my word.
17-year-old
Didn't
owner's
sign him
son
because he didn't have a high enough Madden rating.
told him his Madden rating was too low for the Jets.
I mean, you want to talk about incompetent ownership.
Well,
Woody might be one of the worst. Like, if you're taking advice from your teenage kids because they play Madden,
Yeah.
like, that... I have a hard time almost
mean-
believing that, to be honest with you.
at this point, is that the worst story coming out of the New York Jets, though, really?
Maybe not.
I
but
mean...
it's pretty bad.
That actually is at least data driven in some way, shape, or form. So, like,
Yeah.
some of their decisions, I think they probably should.
That's
check
true,
the Madden
actually,
ratings.
because honestly, hiring Nathaniel Hackett just because Aaron said he's good at his job was probably a worse decision. So
I think Packers fans are kind of secretly enjoying the downfall of Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, not secretly. This isn't
Yeah.
the first time.
secretly, that's
I was gonna
pretty
say.
public.
Yeah.
They did the same thing with Favre. I mean,
Yeah.
so what's the next team that Rodgers has to end up at? He has to end up at
The
the
Vikings,
right?
yeah, he's got to go play for the
Well,
Vikings.
Sam
now.
Darnold,
play
I
for the
think, earned a
Vikings.
job there for a while, so I
Yeah.
don't think.
No, I
don't think that's going to happen.
I think
Favre
Sam
at least had a legacy.
is going to end up in San
Green
Fran
Bay.
next
Well, so
year.
did-
that people
'cause I
look
don't
back
think
on
the
in a good
Niners are
way.
going to pay
Yeah.
Brock.
I think eventually they will with Rodgers too, but it'll take a minute.
Yeah, but he fit in less with the organization, though.
It's not any different than Sammy Sosa writing a letter of apology finally and then being invited 3 minutes later back to the Cubs. So, I mean, there will come a day when Rodgers is welcome back.
Yeah.
Always.
But, yeah.
Time covers up. He's still a Hall of Fame player. Like,
He
that's-
did.
He's not going to tarnish that, but he's just ending a career that's been pretty stellar in a pretty unimpressive way.
But he's ending it high, so that's it's,
So he doesn't care.
he doesn't care. He's not feeling anything.
Yeah, and the money didn't hurt either.
Well, I wouldn't know.
Hey, he did take a pay cut,
Yeah.
a pretty significant one,
I mean, at some
to
point.
get his buddies there.
Yeah. At some point when you're in that many millions, I don't know that it's like
really
you don't
matters.
even notice. Yeah.
Green Bay East.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's not working as well
All the
for him this time.
retreads.
So are we going to do a football episode? What do we want to talk about today? Things?
Well, we've got
What's hot? What's new?
we've got some upcoming like launches with our club brands
I like
that
it.
we work with, and so we thought we'd take this evening to let Brandon kind of speak to what's coming about, and we've got the golf show to plug again, just
Yeah.
coming up in February. We're going to be there again this year, so
Yeah.
I don't remember the dates, but I know it's
21st through the 23rd.
23rd, yeah. So
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we'll be there doing that, showcasing some of the new stuff we're getting from Cleveland, Srixon, Mizuno, and Ping, and
Yeah.
We should record a podcast there. Nobody will care about that.
No, yeah, I thought about that actually.
They'll be like, oh yeah.
Well, at least
boy,
95
yeah.
people.
Sure.
will.
95.
Yeah.
Are you sure we didn't gain one since the last
I'm
episode?
hopeful. So
We should probably check.
I think we hit 97. We haven't hit 100 yet.
Whoa, 97.
We're getting there.
Hey, that's a great
Sweet.
Madden rating.
Nice.
97.
Yeah, all right,
Callback.
good
Yeah.
job, good comment. Way to
I
go.
like it.
no, I thought we
I'm
could
glad
do.
to be back.
Brandon's on it tonight.
Yeah.
Man.
We got full Brandon
I-
force
man.
tonight.
Well, we get to talk about
We get
one
to
of my
talk about
favorite
clubs,
subjects.
and yeah, he
Yeah,
has
that's right.
a-
That's
equipment.
true. He's excited about that.
Yeah.
So really, you're just sandbagging every other episode, is what you're telling us.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. So what's new, Brandon?
Well,
Yeah, what's coming out this year?
like JT said, we got Cleveland, Srixon, Ping, and Mizuno
Okay.
as brands we have available. I'm actually really excited about this upcoming new year. We're going to get
If you couldn't tell by his tone.
not at all
This is elated, if you guys were curious.
ecstatic.
Oh,
I am
Ecstatic.
so thrilled.
It's going to be the best launch of all time.
In the world.
it's gonna be amazing.
No, they got some really cool new irons coming out, new wedges.
Yeah.
Cleveland, Mizuno got the T1, T3,
Yep.
which I think we might have to delay this episode till after the 1st of January because that's not public knowledge yet. But
Oh, we just got in trouble.
That's all right. It's we're people don't know. Yeah. See, you're ruining the illusion, Brandon.
my bad.
But yeah,
The
we'll
S3
be all right.
irons, which are kind of almost like a legacy iron from Mizuno. Those are kind of a blend of a few classics that they've had that were really popular, really good players' irons from the past, and they're actually going to have a 5-year life cycle. So even if you're not in the market,
This is for the MP side of it?
yeah, it's
Oh.
an MP S3 is what it's called. So Mizuno Pro S3.
What does a 5-year life cycle mean for somebody who doesn't
Means
know?
they-
So that
Don't
means
replace it for
those clubs will be available for order, brand new, in stores, brand new for the next 5 years.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty unheard of in
Yeah.
current golf
Yeah,
club
why-
world. So usually you get annual releases,
Right.
at best biannual maybe.
What
So
does
5
SC
years
stand
is
for?
pretty
Split
awesome.
cavity?
S3?
S3, I'm
not
sorry.
sure.
I thought you said SC.
No.
So, okay, you don't know what the initials are.
No, but I have
indicating?
seen the club. It is more of their MP63, MP59 muscle back
Oh,
sort
okay.
of design.
Just got a little bit of a
It's got a little divot in the back. There's a
Yeah.
slight cavity to it, but not much.
yeah.
So kind of similar to their 245 that they currently have, but in
Right.
a little bit larger footprint.
Okay.
So it's going to be a little easier to hit, a little more forgiving.
Ah,
Might be for me.
Yeah. It will. It is the MP line, but I think it's going to fit a larger variety of golfers.
I mean, I'm playing the 243s right now that you got me into
Right.
top to bottom. So this was the first year I played cavities 3 through 9 iron.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a second to get used just to the bulk on especially the bottom end. I found like the turf interaction, if you've been a blade player for a while, it was thick enough to where because I remember coming back to you after like 6 rounds and I was just like, I don't
Yeah.
know. And I specifically remember that combined with the reduction of weight, which is just silly because it was like, what'd you say, 5
5
grams?
5 grams lighter in the shaft.
It was just enough of an adjustment for me to get used to. And then after, 10 rounds, they've been great.
So what I heard was a little lighter in the shaft, but it's got some junk in the trunk.
Kind of.
Yeah.
All right. Baby got back. I like it.
Yeah.
But at least in those
Baby
players'
got
irons, they
bounced,
hide it in the
turns
top
out.
line.
We Yeah, you caught on to it at least. I was hoping
Dad joke.
Mr. Fitter would catch on to that joke.
I didn't hear it. So.
No,
He said, "Baby got bounce."
Yeah. Yeah, a little wider on the sole.
Club bounce.
And then Mizuno is also going to have, to fill in that gap between the game improvement and player side, they are going to have, they had the 923 forged. They're also going to come out with the 925 forged at the same time. And also a club I haven't seen or gotten my hands on it. I got it in an email, the forged black. So I don't know if it's a black finish or if it's a different
Well, always better
profile.
Black. I mean,
It'd be off-putting if it wasn't.
But yeah, I would
false
think
advertising. Yeah.
I would think it's similar to like the
Watch it
driving
shows up.
irons that have that kind of shiny black finish to them.
Sure. Okay.
It's actually going to be the first ever all-white iron.
It's just a little bit of a red herring misnomer. Yeah. So I'm excited to see those and see what those look like, because that would, if you like a clean looking blacked out setup, you could probably get it, because you can get the KBS Tour black shafts as well to go with them.
I was frustrated when they got rid of the black option in their wedges, because the S18s I had with the black.
The ones I still have.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
I still have mine. They're in my spare bag, and they're good wedges too. What were the changes from, what was it, the T20s to the 22s, or 22s to 24s? Because I've noticed with the wedges that I have now, there's like a firmness to them. They're clearly not quite the same feel from the previous model, because there's something. They're a little more compact too in like shape and size.
Right. They did thin them down a little bit.
Yeah.
Beveled the edges a little bit more. And it was a different forged material.
Okay.
I can't think of it off the top of my head if they went to chromoly in those that they like had.
I just noticed like the
irons,
firmness heel to toe felt like a blade from 15 years ago.
Yeah.
There was just like when you hit them solid, they feel great. But the T22s, I think, is what I'd had before, and there was it felt like there was more forgiveness. Maybe they had more weight pushed towards the toe or something.
Yeah,
but.
the weighting was definitely different. I feel like with the T24s, it looked like they got a little more mass directly behind the ball, so it might have shrunk down that
makes sense.
sweet spot just a little bit, but for a more solid feel on the good strikes. And for most people with the wedges, you're not really going to miss the middle too often.
I love your
Don't
optimism.
underestimate.
These shorter clubs, so it should be easier to find the middle more often.
I enjoy your optimism.
What I'll say, because I'll hit like a lot of those heel up kind of shots around the greens.
Right.
Which
I
inevitably,
did notice that as well, a more dead feel.
Yeah.
When you're doing the specialty shots around the greens.
Right, because you're pushing, the center shot more towards the toe. So I noticed just getting a lot of like shots coming off dead. So it took me a while to get adjusted to it. I love the shape and weighting of the wedges, and the satin finish looks great.
Yeah, they went much more for a Vokey design with the 24.
Okay, yeah, that's exactly what I thought. It was just like they're more compact than a Vokey, but the feel reminded me of something that was dated.
Yeah.
Almost. So
Yeah,
are they updating their wedges at all?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So you get the T1 and T3 wedges. I briefly saw them, so I couldn't tell you which one is which. However, they've adjusted, because they like to do the different colored finishes on their wedges. Mizuno does.
Still doing the blue and the...
Yeah, so they actually kind of tweaked the finishes a little bit, and the new wedges do look very nice. And I think along with the, if I'm not mistaken, along with the 925 black, they also have a black wedge version as well. Shaping's a little different, weighting's a little different. Obviously, between the 1 and the 3, one of them is going to be a little more of a blade style. One's going to be a little bit more forgiving. That might fit more players. But I, just even in quick look and testing of them, I'll definitely be getting some of those for my bag this year, because they look awesome. They felt good.
They don't struggle in the aesthetics.
No.
They're pretty talented.
Mizuno's very, very good in that department.
This goes back to the Sandra Bullock movie. Was it good, or did you just like
Shut
how
up.
she looked?
What was I,
It was a
12 when
great
that movie
movie.
came out?
It's the greatest movie ever. Everybody agrees.
That's a great movie.
So for the viewer, what can you elaborate a little on what the purpose of a fitting process is while we're kind of talking about new equipment?
Yeah, so basically the purpose of a fitting is to get equipment that works with you and not against you. And it basically eliminates equipment as the excuse for poor performance, which is both a good and bad thing depending on
I was going to say, I don't
the
know how I
type of
feel
golfer
about
you
that.
Right.
I really like to have something I can complain about.
are. So basically the fitting,
That is true.
most golfers do like that.
And
yeah.
not just in golf.
I was going to say, you're a golfer. You'll find something.
Yeah.
It's just
Careful, I know
finding
where
the
your
right
mute button is.
shaft head combo that
Go for
takes
it.
the force you apply to the club and delivers it to the ball with the most efficiency and gives you the most effective launch conditions, that being ball speed, spin rate, launch angle.
Yeah.
If we can dial in those numbers, you can control carry distance and obviously something that gives you the most consistency left to right dispersion wise, side spin wise, to something that gives you a good feel and good control.
So you're a miracle worker.
No.
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 Fitting can only do so much.
Fitting can't fix your golf swing.
No.
But one conversation I have a lot with people about fitting, especially as it applies to woods and driver, is the ability to improve off-center strikes.
Right.
And that's like something that's not talked about enough. I mean, other than in the deep-seated golf community, but to the average golfer, they're just going into a driver fitting thinking, if I don't add 20 yards on top of my current driver, there's no point in buying it.
Right.
And they'll almost not consider off-center hits or accuracy in general,
Right.
which is the bigger point, really, right, to doing a fitting like that.
Yeah. Just giving you as a player more control
Yeah.
and consistency. And so, for example, I myself this year with the upcoming new releases will probably be replacing the clubs in my bag. So the clubs I currently have, I've only had them 2 seasons, but I got full blades. I got Mizuno 221s all the way
Idiot.
up, pitching wedge to 4-iron. And
He thought he was good.
Wow.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't think I was good. I knew at that point when I bought them, my ball striking wasn't where it had been in the past. I was often missing, especially towards the toe side, which, if you know anything about the design of clubs, especially blades and players' irons, if you miss towards the toe, that's the most punishing miss hit
Yeah.
hurts.
you're going to have.
Because there's no mass.
There's no mass out there. It's
Yeah.
all behind the ball in towards the heel.
And
So
I'll
you can
say
hit
this
center and
in
towards the heel.
Brandon's defense: any good player, which he is, despite what he may say about himself, will go through a phase of I'm going to play blades, and then they'll go through that long enough to go, why the hell am I working so hard?
Yeah.
And you get to the point like where I've gotten to now, and thanks to Brandon's help of just like testing some things out, looking at numbers, and it was just kind of funny reflecting back on our fitting because I was presenting some of my issues with the old blades. I had 789 wedge as my blades, and then 654 were cavity back for several years, and was explaining that the curvature I would get with like 8 and 9 iron where I'm like curving it 40 yards and I don't feel like I really want that. And he's just like quite plainly like, well, you know, blades encourage that. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah. And so we kind of talked through like optimal spin numbers and height and stuff. And I was just like, yeah, this is why you need somebody to like bounce these things off of. Yeah. Even as a better player, you kind of, because I just been fitting myself into what I thought should work for me, and I played okay with it, but it was an area where with an expert's opinion, I can go, oh, okay, this makes more sense to have this setup for my bag. So
Yeah.
regardless of skill level, I'll say this just from my own side of it as a coach, I tend to look for one of two things. One, the swing is largely where we want it to be. So path, swing plane, impact position, all the stuff that you want to have regardless of scoring is kind of there. Well, now you're not throwing money down the drain if you're going to get a fitting, because you can somewhat as a fitter handicap like, hey, you're probably going to increase speed, or you're older so you might decrease speed, so let's do stiffness but lighter weight or whatever. And then there's the discussion of the scoring ability. And for me, if you're starting to really push below 85 into the low 80s consistently, now we need to address your equipment and make sure that that's not a variable you've not checked off, right? So I don't know how that lands with you two guys, but that's stuff that I tend to
Well, I think the
tell
point
people.
of a fitting is not, it's just knowing that it's not going to change your overall ability. It's going to optimize your equipment. That's all it is.
It's going
Like,
to optimize your current ability.
yeah, it's not,
Right.
but it's not changing what you're capable of. Like, you
Right.
have to do that through coaching and practice.
Yeah, but like if you're swinging old ladies clubs from the 70s and you're swinging 93 miles an hour with a 7-iron, that it will maximize your ability, and that could greatly affect scoring because you have more control, you get more ball speed, more distance, so you're hitting
Right.
shorter clubs into greens, which gives you more spin control.
Well, long term, it'll affect
more
it
accurate.
positively.
Yeah. But like for myself, so like I've said before, when I came down here, I'd hardly played golf the previous 8 years. And so I bought those blades knowing that it was going to be difficult to control them, to make good contact, and they would be overly punishing and they would hurt my scores in the short term. But I was basically using them as a training aid
Yeah.
to teach me that, one, I'm going to get feedback if I mishit it.
It's smart.
That's the one thing about blades is when you
Or
hit the
stupid,
center,
but yeah.
it feels fantastic, and you know immediately when you mishit it and
Yeah.
how you mishit it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I wanted that feedback immediately every time I hit a ball.
Which is the motive for good players switching to blades is it's not just aesthetics. They are pretty,
Right.
but it's that the player's trying to make themselves better.
Yes.
Right.
But then you also realize that there's a trade-off of if I only play so much golf, I only have so much time to punish myself. And then it's like I need to find a middle ground, a
Yeah.
club that maybe isn't an offset, heavily forgiving club, but that's the beauty of the industry and where it's at now is we have a lot of options that you could dub as in-betweeners. You know, in the old days, it was like literally you had a blade, you had a cavity back, and that was it.
Right.
And now we've got all these, like, just because of improvements in technology and better materials, you can get clubs that kind of look like blades and set up like blades, but are more forgiving.
Right.
And so that segment's really
Yeah, and
grown.
the last couple years, I knew I would be swinging a lot more, have the ability to hit a lot more shots more frequently, just working here, playing a lot more golf, just because I knew it would be part of my profession. I would have to dedicate more time to it, and I would actually dedicate more time to it. So I was okay with short-term losses for kind of long-term gains in terms of how much more quickly I would get back to my previous ability, having not played for a long time. So, and those have kind of served its purpose. And yeah, now this year, after 2 seasons with those, I would say I'm a significantly better ball striker than I was when I first came down here. My swing's in a much better spot. So, you know, you would think I would be sticking with those blades, but I still see those instances on the course where, yeah, it cost me a stroke there, a stroke here. So, I mean, overall, yeah, I could stick with them, but something a little more forgiving, a little easier to control where I don't have to be as precise all the time. You know, with those blades, like I said, my tendency is to miss towards the toe. I lose almost 20 yards on an approach shot when I hit towards the toe.
Yeah.
If I were to get a cavity back, or at least just a muscle back, something a little more forgiving, that might go down to 10, 12 yards, which is a major difference depending on the course you're playing and the shot you have in that moment.
Right.
You know, I feel like I could easily save myself 2 to 3 strokes around just from a consistency standpoint in those mishits like you were talking about earlier.
Right.
It's not just about the good strikes. It's,
yeah.
hey, how do you miss?
The
Where's
best
the ball
example
go?
of that is what hybrids are for.
Yeah.
I mean, you're trading off. I mean, that's literally the whole thought process there was you're replacing a long iron with an easier to hit version of a long iron.
Yeah.
That kind of marries the technology of a fairway wood with an iron. And so your missed strikes and off-center hits with those are far better, as I've seen in the very little comparison I've done hitting a 3-iron next to a 3 hybrid.
Yeah.
And it almost makes it like why even carry a 3-iron at this point?
And I used to have 3 irons. Every single iron set I had up until the last one I bought, I had a 3-iron in my MP59s that I had when I moved down here. Because I was just always a good ball striker, good and consistent with the irons, short to long, didn't matter. I could find the middle, even if I couldn't always square the face and would miss right and left or whatever. But I could find the middle almost every swing, no matter what. But yeah, when I hadn't played
brag.
for a while, I saw that in the long irons, where that was the part of my game that I struggled the most coming back, was I couldn't hit a 5 or a 4 or a 3 anymore. So I did end up going with a hybrid. This last year, I put a G430 hybrid in my bag, and that has easily become my favorite club. Like, that's my 250 off the
hybrids are
tee all
dangerous,
day.
man.
I can hit
Those are fun.
every fairway. I can hit it out of the
My,
rough.
my Mizuno hybrid's awesome. I
Yeah.
hit that thing
Yeah.
like 235.
I don't have one anymore, but
I'm about to have one.
they're
You might know a guy.
I'm about to have 12
Yeah.
hybrids in my bag.
Yeah.
Well, and
I think I'm going to play hybrid through 8.
we're going to have all the way down to 8 iron.
You joke.
Not 9, but 8.
You joke, but I played with a guy many years ago,
it's
an
a
old
thing.
guy.
Yeah.
And he had like a 17 wood. I didn't even know what that was.
Yeah. Well, and they make hybrid sets all the way through.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like all the way down through
Well,
the west.
and you're actually
Yeah.
seeing those become a lot more popular on tour, where especially the Champions Tour, those guys lose a little bit of speed, and they're playing hybrids down to 7 irons
Yeah.
on professional tours. Or at PGA Tour, you see a lot of guys even replacing 4 irons, sometimes 5 irons, just because of the versatility you get from a hybrid and the ease at which it is
To be
control
fair,
it.
whatever level of embarrassment is provided hitting a 7 hybrid is replaced by shooting 67.
Yes.
So it's kind of like
Touche.
You
At
can't
that
make
point,
fun
you
of
just
that
look
guy.
like a genius.
Yeah.
There's a video circulating of Freddie's at the range, and Tiger comes up to him, and they're like counting all the club head covers in Freddie's bag, and Tiger's like, "You got 6 club head covers in here." And he's like, Freddie's just, he's getting older and stuff,
Yeah.
and so
Well, he's had a bad back for 40 years, so, you know.
Which is why he's got such a fluid, beautiful swing.
Right.
Yep.
It's just buttery. So is it safe to say or fair to say that forgiveness happens at the expense of feel with
No.
equipment?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. That
I-
used to be more the case, though?
It still is in some cases.
Yeah.
You
Like
get
brand to
in,
brand, you mean?
what's that?
Brand to brand, you mean?
Brand to brand,
Or
club
definitely
type.
there are some that feel better than others, even in the game improvement stuff. But
Yeah. I guess what I mean by feel is feedback, though. You know what I mean? Because,
Yeah.
forgiveness used to mean, you're gaining better off-center hits, and obviously you lose less yardage and all that stuff, but you're maybe giving up feedback to some degree.
I still think it is that way, but to a lesser degree.
Yeah.
Materials
Sure.
have come a long way in the compounds they're putting together. They can, you get in these forged irons that are still like super thin faces because they're structurally stronger with
Yeah.
the added alloys, and
Yeah.
so you can still get.
Vibranium.
Yeah. Sure.
This isn't the MCU.
Wakanda Golf.
But yeah, you can have deeper cavities. You can get more weight further back from the center to give you that bigger sweet spot, but still have these forged main bodies that still give that nice feel, consistent
Yeah.
metal across. Because before, you go to those old pings that, it felt like you were swinging a brick.
Yeah.
Like there was no feel, there was no feedback.
Yeah. You had the pings, right?
They weren't the old ones, though.
Oh, okay.
He's got new
Are you
ones.
talking about like the ISIs and stuff?
I'm talking
Or
like
Like
older.
back in the day.
even further back.
Even further back,
No, I know
yeah.
which ones you're talking about.
I2s
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Yeah, ping
Yeah,
I2s.
you know,
No, I
ones like
never,
that.
I never climbed to that level.
The ISIs are still kind of especially the beryllium ones are
Yeah.
kind of a sought after club,
the
right?
brilliant coppers, you can still.
Those feel great.
They're like $1,500
Copper.
bucks for a set still.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those are
'Cause
pretty
they're-
old.
One, collectible. Two, copper is one of the softer metals. That's why Mizuno
Right.
Yeah.
throws copper into almost everything nowadays. Just
Fun
to get a
fact.
softer
A lot of
feel and
people don't
reduce
know that.
vibration.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mizuno.
Well, that's where the
Copper
majority of
coating.
the price increases came from. They started adding copper to it.
Yeah, copper's not cheap these days.
No.
If anyone's ever had to buy wire for your house or anything, you've seen the price go up exponentially.
We buy 1,000-foot boxes. Like every project we do, there's like 15,000-foot boxes. And like every inch that's left, man, it's like, bring it home. Bring it home. We'll recycle it.
Right.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
taking like little
Yeah.
clippings and
It's our
melting
retirement
them
account,
together
man.
to
Yeah, forget precious precious metals.
There's 40 feet
Gold,
left.
silver.
We're going to Sizzler.
Sizzler.
So
Oh, man.
I do think that's one of the areas Ping has really improved in. I was hitting some of their players' irons this last year, the Blueprint S's.
Those are pretty.
And they look nice, and they also feel great. Like Ping is notoriously.
Is that what I was hitting?
That's what you were hitting, yeah.
Yeah, that was nice.
And, Mizuno, they used to have the tagline, "Nothing feels like a Mizuno." That was their main selling point.
Right.
But they also made beautiful looking, great feeling irons on top of,
Yeah.
It wasn't just the feel. They looked great. They performed well.
Yeah.
Ping notoriously performed reasonably well. They just looked and felt awful.
Or different.
Depends on what series. I
Yeah,
mean, the G.
My kind of club. Performs well, just looks terrible.
So with their
Nobody will
latest,
want to steal it.
with their latest stuff, the last 10 years, they're starting to get a better reputation of, hey, this performs just as well as everything else like it used to. But hey, it also looks good in the bag, and is starting. Their forgings are getting softer, and
Yeah.
just getting better feel and feedback from the shots.
I'd
And even
push-
some of their game improvement stuff is going that direction.
I'd push back on that. I think in a vacuum, Ping stuff looks fine. It's to the Ping player, they look great. The aesthetic is just unique, and I think what I've always appreciated about Ping is they're just so consistent in what they do,
Yeah.
and they're so predictable, and they've been around for 100 years, and so. Like I think honestly, you could make the argument with Ping putter to driver. They're the most predictable, consistent brand that covers the whole bag.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Well, furthermore, you could argue they're probably the best across the board. I mean,
Well,
that's
that's what
kind of
I'm
where you're
saying.
going
Yeah,
with
they're-
that.
they're average.
They're
Titleist,
really good.
Ping,
at
putter to
average.
driver, and Titleist outsources their putters and wedges. Ping doesn't. It's just in-house.
Impressive.
They've got their own shaft lines in a lot of cases. So, yeah, I've never really had Ping stuff in my bag outside of a putter for 1 year. And I chose the year that they did that stupid blue insert in their putters.
Hey, I had that for a while.
Yeah, the G5i.
G2i first.
I had the
or
G5.
Yeah.
And it was too many dead spots, so I went away from insert putters forever after that. But their equipment stands the test of time, dude. They're such a reputable brand.
Yeah,
and,
but like a classic answer putter.
I had a 2007 Anzer.
Yeah.
and they're very like kind of the American version of Mizuno. They're family owned. They do all this stuff consistently, and
They're a bunch of engineering nerds.
yeah. Like
Well, in the 90s and early 2000s, I mean, that was always my dream, was to be able
Yeah.
to get to a point
they
where
were
I
top tier, man.
deserved a set of ping.
And they still
irons.
are.
Yeah.
Marketing would have you believe otherwise, but they're more consistent than arguably anybody. I mean, they really don't have the dips or the fall offs. I mean, even Titleist with the 913, 15, and 917 driver lineups were pretty bad by their own standards. And then they kind of scrapped it all, reset it, went public, and then the TS lineup from them the last 5 years has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
But with Ping, they've had years here and there where, like, okay, the sound aesthetic wasn't quite right or whatever, but they're just so darn predictable.
I mean, their drivers and fairway woods.
yeah,
I mean, those have been good for forever.
yeah.
Like they were on the cutting edge of technology back when I was a kid. I remember my brother got one of their like bore through kind of trapezoidal.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember
those.
what the model was, but
Yeah.
it was like something SI.
The fairway woods were famous. They were really popular.
And even now, you go back to like the original Ping G series, they still have held their value 15, 20 years later because they're easy to hit. You don't lose anything in terms of distance performance, despite the amount of forgiveness, and everybody wanted them.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I've always, Ping woods have been great. Ping irons are the ones that typically get the bad rap because they're clunky. They're usually on the larger side.
well, that's
they're
the
harsh,
G series,
they're
but
hard.
yeah.
Well, and the offset. That was, for me
Yeah,
personally, was
very
always the
offset.
issue, was there's just such an extraordinary amount of offset with
Hey,
so many of their irons.
What's offset?
Brandon?
Well, offset is the amount of distance that the head is behind the hosel.
Specifically the leading edge.
Yes,
Yeah.
leading edge behind the hosel. It's supposed to give you a little more time to square the face.
Helps with slicing the ball.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
helps not slice it. Because most people associate more with like baseball, softball, where the handle and the point of impact are in a straight line. They're on the same level.
Hopefully.
So, it just gives you, that offset.
Yeah.
It's like
The shaft gets to the ball first,
Yeah.
and you think that's where you want to be,
Right.
but then it's just that little bit of extra time to get that face rotated.
Yeah, which after I played the Cleveland TA3s from 2002 to 2007, I was progressing enough to then move into, something more advanced, and it's definitely a help when you're a new golfer, kind of developing some stuff.
It's like
Something
kind of a mind game, a little bit.
Yeah, something I used to
Could
always
be.
wonder with offset though was like, do we not talk about the fact that the hosel's now in front of the face, like for detrimental
it does
reasons?
bring more shank into play.
Yeah, like that's the counter. It's like it does give you more time to rotate the face, but you now are leading with the hosel.
Yes.
if you don't get rotation.
I guess, but like in my case with the TA3s, I had like 6 inches of club face, so
Yeah,
it was
typically
not-
it swung around.
yeah,
fine.
it was fine.
Typically, the more
What hosel?
offset,
It's like Fisher
the
Price.
longer the blade length
Yeah.
Huh.
yes.
to account for it.
Yep.
Yeah. If you
have
didn't
to.
have that, it would be
Yeah, if you're
it'd
playing
be bad.
a
Like a short iron
What?
Yeah.
with a lot of offset, that'd be a bad deal.
What was that iron set that
the
was
toe
like the
won't
club face was
swing around.
completely in front of the hosel? You know what I'm
Oh,
talking
I
about.
know what
Like
you're talking
they're
about,
so
yeah.
ugly.
Well, that's still been a thing.
well, the Cleveland
the
Vass.
the
is that what you're
reverse
talking about?
offsets.
was it Cleveland? I'm gonna Google that
So
now.
the Cleveland Vass, actually, I forget who it was, but he won a major with them, and they're dubbed the ugliest irons of all time for a reason.
Easily, yeah.
And they had like a purple and yellow '90s color scheme, and they were an awful like.
Which,
trapezoidal
by the
shape.
way, because a tour player endorses something once doesn't make it good for you.
no,
Like
not
that's
at
how
all.
people buy golf clubs, and that's like the
Okay.
marketing. And then I remember
So
this.
there's the back of
Oh
it.
yeah, I remember that.
Remember these?
Cleveland did them. There was another specialty company that did a more recent version of that. It was
Right.
kind of an infomercial thing on
That's
Golf
the
Channel.
front.
Yeah,
I do remember that actually.
yeah,
Yeah, no hosel, can't
No
shank it.
hosel.
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it
Never
Shankless. I like it.
Yeah, never underestimate an
Shankless.
amateur golfer.
Except
Shankless.
you could still hit the shit out of the leading edge of the heel. So it's like it's shankless, but you can blade everything.
But that's
Yeah.
not,
So-
but
Cut
that's
a
not
ball in
shank.
half because it's still wound.
But it's not a shank.
pretty close.
yeah,
Just
I'm
as
saying.
bad.
You got to pick your battles if you're determined not to shank it.
Listen, number one, the shank is the easiest miss in golf to identify. Number two, if you have that information, it's actually really simple to make the adjustment.
easiest to avoid.
But it's thanks to Tin Cup, it's become such this like diabolical like mental block for
It's
people.
all Kevin Costner's fault.
It is. I blame Kevin Costner.
So is the hosel rocket.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, it's the same thing. I'm just saying,
Well,
like,
the
people
fact
have
that-
blown it up to be something that's like, I got a disease.
Oh my God. No, that's a thing in golf. Yeah. Don't ever say the S word.
Which I
That's
love it
like-
when they say stuff like that, and I just abuse it.
It's so stupid.
Oh, you don't like the shank? Yeah, the shanks are bad. Yeah, we need to avoid the shanks.
Yeah. You say it as much as you
Immersion
can.
therapy.
Yeah.
I just find it funny that there's a PGA Tour player whose name is Shank. So
Yeah.
that's always
Yeah.
Right.
funny
Yeah.
when they're announcing him.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. on
Yeah.
that. You're thinking the same
yeah.
thing.
I know. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I think one thing a lot of people don't realize too, though, about club tech is as golf clubs don't drastically change in shape. I mean, yes, in intricacies they do, but I think people lose kind of the quality material side and don't understand that over time that does make a big difference.
Right.
Because like a golf club's always going to kind of look the same, and so people get cynical about fitting, and they think, well, what does it matter? Like it's just
Yeah.
another iron
I
that's
had
20
this-
years
I had
newer.
this in the 90s.
It's like, well, my
No, you
dude, like
didn't.
quality of metals and how they build the thing does matter. Like it does change
Sure.
how it performs.
it's all physics.
Yeah.
Physics tricks. So basically the goal is to get as much of the weight as far low and behind the golf ball as you can.
Junk in the trunk. Yeah.
The more, yeah. If you ever notice, like the most forgiving clubs are typically more triangular in shape, and more of the players' clubs are going to be more like a pear or rounded shape, or like a teardrop, especially with the drivers and fairway woods. And that's because that triangle, if you can get all that mass right in the middle, as far back away from the face as you can, then that's the physics of it.
Easier to launch.
Sweet spot bigger, makes the club twist less on toe and heel strikes. Gives you less torque at impact. And also, if you get it low, you get more mass below the center of the golf ball. It's going to launch higher.
Yeah.
So when you get it, and it creates more spin that way as well. So when you can launch it higher with more spin, you can then turn the loft down to give you more ball speed. So you're not launching it too high and spinning it too much as well, because that reduces spin and launch. So it's this trick of how much weight can we take away from the face and put it low and back, so that we can still launch the ball high enough and get enough spin while turning the loft down to also increase distance at the same time.
So while the average viewer just fell asleep, what you're really saying
That
is
sounds like a lot of math.
what you're really saying is
all 6 of them are now
We just lost 2 subscribers.
down to 4.
practically speaking, it's silly to spend the money that people do on golf equipment and not get it fit. That shouldn't
Yes.
even be a question. Like, get the fitting.
Yeah. The only way I would say, like, it's a waste of money to get fit is if you can't hit the ball.
Yeah, sure.
Like, if you consistently, like, 1 out of 3 hits on the face, you shank the other one, you top the other one.
Then it's pointless. Yeah.
Just buy a set of equipment that you can afford.
Walmart.
And
Go to
learn-
Costco.
Learn to swing it. Yeah,
Go to
actually,
Goodwill.
Kirkland's Signature is one of the, like, best deals you can get.
You're
Oh,
gonna
they're
start. You're gonna
great.
start carrying and fitting Kirkland Signature.
No.
Unfortunately, that's the one thing you can't get fit.
No.
You can get stiff or
starter
regular
set,
flex,
though.
and it's all out of a box. There's no
Yep.
length adjustments, no lie adjustments, nothing like that.
But there's a segment of golf now with other brands that have grown that
Yeah.
are kind of those all-inclusive sets that are in a middle tier
Like Tacoma
price
is
point.
doing
They're not
direct
cheap,
consumer.
Yeah, but
They're
they're
$700
Yeah.
an iron set
Vice golf.
typically.
sticks,
Sticks, you can get
Yeah.
a full 13 club set for
$1,000.
$1,000.
Yeah.
So
Plenty of options these days.
there
to
are
get
a lot
started.
of options. You can get, like I said, Kirkland Signatures.
I
They're
started
just
with
as good as 2019 clubs that they copied.
Yep.
And they're cheap. You can get a full set, 3 wedges, irons, driver, putter for like under $1,000 now.
Yeah.
right.
Not
And a
high
bag.
quality.
I started
And the
with
bag, yeah.
Super Metal Matrix from Play It Against Sports.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had some. I had a combination of Golfsmith stuff, and I don't even remember what my irons were. I don't think they actually had a name.
I had Wilson Ultras.
And then I upgraded
Walmart.
to Lynx Black Cats.
Oh,
yeah.
Lynx. That's what my dad
Yeah.
My brother had the Northwesterns, if you remember those.
played. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My very
Yeah.
first full set of clubs was a set of McGregor MacTech
There you go.
M685s. that
Greg
I
Norman.
bought with my own money when I was
Yeah.
13.
Oh, Top Flights. That's
Hey,
what
that's
I
a
had. I had Top,
Top
Flight
flights,
irons.
yeah.
Top flight.
That's
Nice.
a fun topic.
Yeah.
Is what was your your first really nice set?
I mean, those
like how old were you, and how much did you spend on your first nice
So those
set?
MacTechs
okay.
were actually forged blades.
Last
and I remember they
year.
were $285. $285
For what?
for those McGregors.
Oh,
And
okay.
they were forged blades. They were
Yeah,
on
new?
like 2 years, brand new.
Okay.
They were like 2 or 3 years old on clearance from the Golf Warehouse.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
But that was a couple years ago.
So I,
yeah, that was a long time ago.
my first real job, was working at McDonald's. Between sophomore and junior year, so I'd saved up all my money that year, making $5.15 an hour, and bought my set of Cleveland TA3s for my senior year of high school,
Brand new.
brand new from a little par 3 golf shop.
yeah.
How much
and
were they then?
And I remember they were $625 because my mom had to
Oh,
help
wow.
me.
Okay.
I
yeah.
had saved up like $500, and they were like, "Well, we'll cover the rest." And so I went in, and they had like the irons displayed in a nice Cleveland golf bag. It had a Cleveland putter and a driver. And so I went in thinking I'm getting a whole set.
And a bag.
Because I'm 15 and ignorant. And a bag, yeah. So I bring that whole thing to the register, and the dude's just like, I don't know, like, all right, it'll be $1,300. And I was like,
I don't have that kind of.
wait, I thought it said, he's like, well, that's just for the irons. And I was so crushed. Because then I left there just like carrying my irons, thinking I'm getting this brand new bag, and I was just like, I had such buyer's remorse too, because I was just like, I just worked my butt off like cooking burgers in 30 seconds all summer for the, you know. But it really did help me a lot, because as I was saying, my first set was just these like cheap box set I bought from Play It Again Sports, and literally my sophomore year, like one of the last tournaments, I went to hit my 3-iron. And not breaking off at the shaft, the hosel, the face just flew off after I hit the shot, and the head went into this creek, and I was just like holding the club going, well, that can't be right. Like, that's probably not good. And so that summer I was like, no, I got to save up and buy a real set of clubs. And then I got a nice hand-me-down set of Cleveland wedges that were stolen in our first golf tournament.
Oh, jeez.
So
you didn't have them very long.
I had them for like 3 rounds of golf, which
wow.
made me mad.
That sucks.
So yeah, that was like my first set I saved up and bought for
That
myself.
kind of stuff's devastating when you're that age.
oh,
Because you don't have any
gosh.
money, and
Yeah.
you're
I
like,
didn't get over that for months.
Yeah.
I was so mad about
And
that.
it's your passion,
I couldn't replace it.
Yeah.
I ended up going to Fred Meyer and buying a set of Adams Tom Watson signature wedges.
Oh yeah.
I got them for $100. I got
those are classics.
gap wedge, sand wedge, lob wedge. Played those for the rest of my high school career.
First club I bought was a driver. I was using at that point, because I had all this, like, I had the Top Flight irons, and then I had a bunch of Golfsmith weird stuff in between. But I had this big old gold, like, I don't even know what kind of plastic it was made out of, driver. And all the guys called it the genie lamp, because this is the 90s, right? So
Yeah.
the big giant gold head,
Sure.
right? And
I love gold.
Yeah, I know, right? I could smash the thing, but
Sure.
I never knew what direction. But I ended up buying my first real club, TaylorMade Burner Bubble. Number
Heck
one.
Oh, yeah.
I only sold that this year too. I had it
You
up
kept
until
it
this
for
year.
a long time.
Yeah.
Now, was
well,
that a Tin Cup influence?
I don't.
Because he played that
Did he?
at the end of the movie. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. No,
Okay.
that was just
Fun
that
fact.
was the cool thing to have was the bubble
Yeah.
They were.
in the 90s.
They were cool
I had a
looking.
3-wood.
Yeah.
Kind of that burnt orange. I mean, they
Yeah.
were different.
Really? Well,
Yeah,
they just
that
came back with
bronze.
the mini driver that has the same colorway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
I can't-
TaylorMade's the least
it looks
creative brand
fantastic.
Fun random story about old school TaylorMade logo. I had an old TaylorMade T-shirt, like just the brand logo. But if you remember do you remember the old logo? It was just like the
circle.
with the T.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tesla.
My sister-in-law thought it was something inappropriate
Oh,
because I wore the. I don't remember where it was some family event. I just wore the T-shirt, and she thought it was like a girl wearing a thong. And I was like, "It's a golf logo."
That says more about her than you.
I know, that's what I'm saying. But she,
It's like,
she didn't know anything about golf, and it was just this funny thing. I had this like TaylorMade T-shirt.
I guess
on.
if Taylor's a girl.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sure. It's
Yeah,
a,
I
yeah,
could see
John's a
the-
Swiftie. He's into whale
I
tails.
mean, to be fair, after she said it, I looked at it again. I was like, "Oh yeah,
Now I can't stop
now I
seeing
can't
it.
unsee it.
now I really like this shirt.
Now I love this shirt."
That's awesome.
Yeah, my first nice set was the first set I bought was a set of Nike Pro Combos because I knew
Oh,
nothing
yeah.
about golf equipment.
You had those at Myrtle
So
Beach.
I was influenced by that's what I had, and there were some individual clubs that I filled in later, like the ping putter and stuff like that. And my parents helped me with a like the TaylorMades, the R580, I think,
Yep. R580. Yeah.
and stuff like that. So, but the first nice set I bought was those Nike Pro Combos, and those were $1,000 or $1,100,
Yeah,
and that was my first plunge into like really spending my own money on golf equipment, and
Well,
that's
Nike,
when my parents knew I was committed.
Nike made some interesting clubs over the years. Some
Yeah.
good-looking stuff. It just
For a
unfortunately
minute, they were great.
it just didn't perform as well as
The
most
irons
other
were
brands, but-
fine.
Yeah. drivers, they
Really hit or
never
miss.
learned how to create distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They learned how to create obnoxious sounds, though.
Oh, the Sasquatch.
Hey,
Yeah,
I will. I will say,
that?
as someone who currently has a Nike Dymo 3-wood in his bag,
Yeah, that's more interesting.
the fact
At
that
this point.
that I think that was where they actually had gained some traction with that that model, that series, and it's not the square back one, but it's the
Are
proper
you
aesthetic.
Carrying
Yeah.
that still because you genuinely have not found a fairway wood you like better?
So, right. So the flip side to this argument is I need to just do a wood fitting, but in general, my whole premise.
Only you knew a guy.
Yeah.
It's weird. The whole premise I had is I want something that's just a bit longer than my 3 driving iron.
Is it the weight, too?
Very much so.
Yeah.
So the whole head's still metal,
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
and the way that they
Titanium.
engineered the bottom is it's more pointed. It gets through turf a little easier. The
Kinda
face is
square a little
deeper.
bit on the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, and so for me, there's just a lot of forgiveness in it because I wanted something that I could create a little more height and got more distance out of than the 3 iron. So I was trying to find a gap that just got beyond the longest club in my bag, not one that sandwiched the longest iron between that and the driver.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot, because with the students we work with, so often they're just like, well, I can't hit my 3-wood. I'm like, who can? Let's move
Yeah.
on.
Me either.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's what you want to hear from your coach. Nobody can.
Well, it's
Hey,
look,
straight to the truth.
the comparison I give people is like, well, how good are you hitting driver off the ground? 3-wood's its second cousin, so it's not going to be a ton. The people treat it as though it's just this hybrid that should be easy to hit, and it's just not.
It's literally for most people 5 more degrees,
Yeah.
yeah,
like, and a smaller head.
yeah.
Well, and-
it's 2 inches shorter.
The
few
advantage with the
degrees
3-wood
less.
you have, it probably creates so much spin that it really doesn't probably go offline much.
You know, we
for you.
don't count 3-wood off a tee, but we're talking 3-wood off
Off
a
the
deck,
deck.
specifically. But it is amazing how people go to those questions first when they bring in scorecards with 42 putts and crap like that.
Oh, God.
They're
Yeah,
like, well,
don't
I
get
just
me
need to
on
know how to
that.
hit 3-wood off the deck. And it's like, no,
No, you
you need to
don't.
know how to putt because you're terrible on the greens.
So I've been doing this more recently with golfers that are in that kind of bogey range, so call it 85 to 95. And it's a mandatory thing. So in the first few weeks, I make them play 9 holes without their woods.
Yeah.
And same tee box, so they're not moving up a tee, they're not shortening the golf course. And then we just analyze their score and see what's different. And dude, like 9 times out of 10, they shoot around the same score, maybe a stroke or 2 worse. And all it does is just throw into perspective the value of getting off the tee with distance. And
Yeah.
the balance of that plus, okay, now I'm giving away strokes because my driver's not performing, but I'm going to hit it 14 times anyway because who gives a shit, and I'm practicing. And so there's just this balance of decision making, and you're just trying to hone in on that. And with the 3-wood discussion, it's like, where are you hitting it? How often are you like putting this into play? Is it really that accurate for you? Because in my case, when I did have like the Mizuno 3-wood, it was literally like the second shot on 11 at Tiffany, and that was like the only place in town I'd hit it. Because driver was more accurate off the tee, gave me yardage. It was like I don't need the number that I was getting from 3-wood. I'll just back up to 3 iron and call that good, and I can hit the fairway more easily. So. Yeah, I think I'm in the boat now where I'd probably test out a 2 hybrid or a 5-wood or something and just see if I couldn't find something that was just enough longer with a little more height than my 3 iron.
I know when I got fit a couple years ago, we looked at 3-wood, and they ended up actually moving me to a 4-wood
Yeah.
for a similar reason.
Yeah, the gapping.
Yeah.
Well, to me, if I'm laying up off the tee, going from, let's say I'm right around 300, going down to 270, 280 with the 3-wood, I'm kind of like, okay, I can get away with that if I'm hitting it well. But if it's really not much more accurate than driver,
Right.
then my confidence isn't great either. Well, now I'm going down to 3 iron anyway. So I may as well have a club that's just enough longer than that 3 iron, but it's way more accurate. Right? And so I think this
for
is
like
where
the second shot on par 5 attempts and
That's-
stuff like that.
That's the whole reason I have my
Yeah.
Mizuno hybrid.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it just
Or 5-wood, like a 5-wood's fine.
yeah, and you get the added height. which spin and stuff. So that's where, having a fitter to talk through those things with you is so beneficial because, if you're in those scoring zones, and especially for those that are, 20 handicaps or better, like you really can start to work through course details through the bag and just set your bag up to be more successful. Yeah. So
truthfully, the fitter knows what you need more than you do. So
that can't be true.
That's why you
most
hire
of the time.
That can't be true.
Good ones. Good ones. So I'm curious, and I'm going to start with Duke since you're the supposed amateur golfer here.
What do you mean supposed? Would you like to see my scores?
Preference, I guess, would be the term here.
Okay.
But first club in the bag you'd get fit for?
Oh.
Putter to driver?
Well, for me, I would probably I got fit 2 years ago. And the thing I was most interested in was, at that time, driver 3-wood, just because my biggest challenge is directionality off the tee.
Sure.
And so it's my biggest pain point. So I was trying to solve my biggest pain point. Like
Fair.
my irons were fine-ish. So I was all about the pain point for me.
Okay. So, John, and let's go more coaching angle. If you're recommending like first club in the bag, what are you saying getting fit for first? Putter.
Yeah. Maybe wedges. So, I mean, they're in categories, right? So, like,
of course,
when you say what club, it's like, well, the irons are kind of its own category, so it's silly to separate them.
No, yeah.
But the yeah, and even for my game, like, it's ironic because my driver struggles are my biggest issue right now, just because of lack of play and stuff. So you would think I'd go beeline right to the driver fitting, but most of my struggles are self-created. Per se, I could optimize with a driver fitting, but I'd still be much quicker to do the wedge or putter fitting.
Yeah,
which is interesting because I was most interested in the driver fitting. Wasn't even thinking about getting a different putter, but that was actually one of the more fascinating parts of the fitting, and I think one of the more beneficial.
From a coaching aspect, it's partly just out of experience and talking to people that it's ironic how very few people even know that putter fitting is a thing.
I didn't.
That's shocking to me. Like, it's one thing to say that they're not prioritizing it.
Right.
But when people are like, wait, you get fit for a putter?
No,
and it's like, that's the club that you hit 40% of your strokes with.
I remember him handing me a mallet style type of putter and going, I hate these because they just feel really heavy. He goes, just give me 3 putts. And I went, fine, whatever. And it's like, I felt like I couldn't stop the ball. He goes, okay, no, I just needed to see something. Give it to me. He put some weight on the top of it, handed it back to me, and all of a sudden it's like, ooh. Like, I didn't even know this was a thing. He goes, yeah, we just got to balance the weight out. That's all.
So
what?
You could make an argument based off what you're saying that's why a putter fitting is the most immediately effective. Because it's the motion that's the easiest to control for every player.
Yep.
So, like, when I've done putter fittings, like, you can get into real fancy tech. Like, there's these things called Sam Putt Labs and different versions of them that you can measure every angle of every movement and spin and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I've done putter fittings off of a roll board, which is a literal piece of, like, fabric that's directional, and the ball, as you hit the ball off the roll board, it just kind of shows how the ball's coming off the face. Both directionally, but it also shows how, if it skips or not.
Yeah.
Little piece of velvet.
And so my best fittings by far have been what I call more active adjustment fittings, where I'll take a putter and put it in that loft and line machine, adjust it, have the person then hit a few more putts, and then you can see, like, in real time, immediate change. And then that person's like, geez, I would have never thought this was, like, that important.
That's the way it was for me. It was like a 2.5 hour, 3 hour fitting, and like an hour, 45 minutes into it, he's like, hey, you're starting to get tired. Let's go work on the putter for a minute. And
there's that.
Just walking through all that and doing that. I'm like, I had no idea. I didn't know.
We really need to get to a point where we can highlight that more here. I think part of it's just facilities. And it's facilities, and then it's contacts and how many putter brands we're set up with, and we're going to make a pursuit for that, more of a pursuit of that in the near future.
Which every brand we have.
Yeah, we plead it all the time.
I mean, I don't know if Srixon has putters.
No, but I mean, if you're rocking, I mean, Ping alone is a putter giant.
Yeah.
You know, So in Cleveland actually has some really awesome budget level ish
much more affordable.
offerings. And they
But
always
they
test
perform
out
great.
well. Like if you've ever
Yeah.
followed My Golf Spy, they've always found even some of the Cleveland putters to be
Yeah.
really good
Well,
for
and
what they are.
They're fully
$100
milled
putters.
from a single piece of
Yep.
metal.
No, they're
Like,
fantastic.
Great feel,
So
great
I
performance.
went the opposite way from a coaching perspective. The driver to me is the most risk reward. So when I have somebody whose swing is finally like where I want it, from my perspective, there's so many variables that go into a decent putting stroke and having confidence there. The first touchy issue, which I see with so many younger players that have tons of speed or athleticism, which I'll just say anybody 55 and younger that's got enough club head speed is going to have plenty of distance to work with, and then at the same time has a 10-year-old driver with too soft a shaft, and they're just like, I can't figure out this thing. And I'm just like, yeah, because it's a decade old. You bought it out of a used club bin, and it's not custom to you. And to me, it's the most value from a standpoint of its highest risk reward. So if you're trying to cultivate a good swing and also utilize this off the tee, which every amateur golfer is looking to do,
Heck yeah.
that's where I would start, because it's also the most cost intensive. Like the driver's an expensive piece of equipment.
It's gotten stupid.
Yeah.
and
500 to 800 is now common.
and there's ways to get around that. Do the fitting.
no idea when I
And
did
if
my
you're
fitting.
budget
Yeah.
conscious, then use that information to go buy something that's closer to what you got fit to.
Yeah.
It's maybe a couple years old, and you can find something that's a bit more discounted. But to John's point, you can't go wrong doing a putter fitting either, because, as he said, that's 40% of your strokes. So
Yeah.
I think
to me, it's the polar ends of the bag I would start with either way.
That makes sense.
And that way you've got the one club you're using the most, and then the club that you wrap way too much confidence in.
since you asked from a coaching aspect, I went straight to putter because it is the least talked about by far.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Driver
I don't
fittings
disagree.
are what people beeline
You make
for.
a compelling argument.
People go to driver fittings before they do iron fittings.
Yeah.
And I'm saying a lot of people that have no business doing driver fittings.
Right. So the context
so
was
I've done plenty
so
of
long as
driver
the
fittings.
swing is like where we want it to be.
Drivers are sexy. That's why people do it.
Yeah.
Because it's big, it's fast, it is carbon fiber, it looks cool.
Drive for show, man.
Yeah. So
They're
that's
not,
why,
though. Drivers are bulky and cumbersome. Blades are sexy.
Yeah, but that's not how the average golfer views it.
All right, what's your answer?
Yeah. So let's get to the fitter's opinion here.
The guy that matters.
What
That's why I was saving his opinion for
I would
last.
say, whatever club sucks the most.
Biggest pain point. Yeah.
Well, and it's not even necessarily pain point. Like in that regard, it's what's the most outdated, and it's actually inhibiting your potential strokes gain. Like where can we gain the most strokes by
Got it.
improving that part of your bag? For most people,
That's a smart
yeah,
answer.
it is either
He's a
going to be
smart guy.
putter or driver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most
Usually.
iron technology doesn't move as fast as some other technologies. Putter technology, there's been some
All over the place.
It's kind of wild when it
Yeah.
changes,
Well,
and how
you-
much it changes.
Insert putters are a good example of that.
Yeah.
Because insert putters 15 years ago were dog shit.
Yeah,
And they've come a long way really fast.
Yeah.
and then especially with like AI, how AI is starting to influence the space, where they're able to literally test billions of designs in
Yeah.
a year and just have a computer model it, and how accurate
It's cool
the
and
models
annoying
and
all
all
at
that.
the same time.
I'm about ready to get AI to golf for me. My sweat is ready. So,
No, just buy one of those clubs that has that like 22 round in it, and you just
Yeah.
you go
Yeah.
through a lot of golf balls.
The easier way to do this
Yeah.
is just fill out scorecards.
Marks it up.
Yeah,
Done.
just go to a
Oh.
course.
Why are you
get
making
a
this so
scorecard.
hard?
Well, there's less exercise. So. All right.
There's only so much you can do
Right.
with.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's all physics, moving the weight around. It's only so much you can do in a compact head like an iron. There's a lot more you can do in something like a driver,
Yeah.
Yeah.
especially with materials get stronger, faces get thinner, you get more of a trampoline effect, more energy, and then that thinner face means, hey, where can we put that weight?
Yeah.
But everything is still limited by the rules of golf as well. Like we haven't talked about that aspect where
That's a different episode.
they have a
That's
specific
yeah.
parameter
Yeah.
that they have to work within.
Yep.
So there's only so much they can change.
Yeah.
We'll have to have a rules of golf episode in general too,
true.
not just tied to the. We can make it fun.
We should have a whole episode on balls.
So, drivers'
Yeah.
technology does move faster. So drivers need, like, upgrading drivers more frequently makes sense. Iron technology doesn't move as fast. It still does move, and it's worth looking at. 7 to 12 years.
Well, so that was going to be. We're really probably out of time, but I have 2 questions. Number 1.
Yes.
How often should I change out my clubs?
Depends on how much money you make.
There is no better answer.
That is.
So
wow.
I tell people that there's a rough 5-year life cycle with equipment just due to technology changes.
Well, and it depends on what you want the equipment to do for you.
Play golf.
Like if you're changing your clubs every 2 years and you're expecting you're going to gain 10 yards every time and you're going to gain this much accuracy every time.
That'd be awesome.
Whoops.
That's not how it goes. If you're upgrading from like 12-year-old clubs,
Yeah.
and you should expect to see some improvements in the equipment over that time.
Yeah, I've said for a long time now, 5 to 7 years for irons, 3 to 5 for driver. Just something, very arbitrary, but if you're the guy that buys a new driver every year,
Okay, so but when we say 3 to 5 or 5 to 7, that's assuming roughly how many rounds a year?
25 to 30.
yeah.
Okay.
But it's also considering the improvements in technology. Because we're saying that like annual drastic improvements are not a thing.
Okay.
But you will see every 3 to 5 years with irons something that kind of matters.
So every other iPhone, really, that you upgrade.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
But if
Maybe
you
it's
play
about
a
4 or
lot of
5
golf,
years.
like that's a different discussion. If you play a lot of golf, club wear is a serious discussion.
What does that point look like? Like how much golf is a lot of golf where you have to start worrying about
150 rounds a year.
Yeah.
wear? Wow.
But you would start to know, and just even in wedges immediately, but irons too, effectiveness of the grooves. I mean, that's the simplest measure. Is they start
you'll see
to
the face start to flatten out.
Yeah.
You'll start to get brown, rusty spots.
Yeah.
The finish will wear off.
Okay.
Yeah.
The only time frame I experienced this was Myrtle Beach, where we got to practice, 5 days a week, played 2 rounds a week.
Yeah.
The blades I bought, I had the MP67s that were pretty new by the time I got there. By the end of that 16, 18-month window, I had wear patterns. Looked nothing like Tiger's wear patterns, but I had wear patterns on my clubs. And it's the only time I've experienced that. It's the only time I was hitting enough range balls to get through that, play enough golf to get through that. I think between the Vokies, the scratch wedges, and maybe one other set, I went through a couple wedges while we were there.
Okay.
Just because of the sandiness of the soil. You're also getting into environment. Where you play kind of matters.
Yeah.
If you got muddy clay, kind of like we have around here, unless you're hitting a ton of bunkers, you're just not going to wear down as much. But the sand really wears on those clubs and grooves pretty quick. So
one last note on club wear is, especially with drivers, whenever they break.
That's a good one.
Which sometimes can be really fast.
Yeah.
Depending on the brand.
Exactly.
Hey, I
Check your warranty.
It's embarrassing, but I got fit years ago with Golf MD, and then I had the first iteration of the TS from Titleist. And unbeknownst to me, because it was rather aesthetically like uniform, I had caved the face in within the first month. And there's just like this little indent that ran along the crown of the driver.
Should we tell them how much that driver cost?
We don't need to go there.
A lot.
But, I didn't pay retail, first of all. But
but it was a $900 driver.
So, So
we're going there.
All right.
Really
With tax, it was
everybody
$1,000. Yeah.
Almost $1,000 driver.
Shaft upgrade was significant. So anyway, I'd been getting used to it, and the whole purpose behind it was my intention to actually play tournament golf. And so I didn't even discover it. John was showing it off to like a student or something, and he was like, "Dude, what's up with your club? I think you've got a caved face." And I was like, "Oh, is it not supposed to look like that?" Because here was the deal. It actually,
I remember that.
Performance-wise, I think your club's broken.
Performance-wise, it wasn't super noticeable. The sound had changed like slightly.
Yeah. But no
and then I
cracks
texted
or-
a picture to Mike at Golf MD. Shout out Mike, was super helpful, and he was just like, "Oh yeah, I'll get you another one." I was like, "Oh, all right," because I'd already played it for a month. Well, it looked like that. I'm just going like, "It's a weird design feature, but whatever."
There you go.
The backstory there is I had played one driver, which was the 905S at that time for like 10 years.
Pro Force.
Yes,
V2.
V2
Yes,
shaft,
sir.
and this was my first brand new driver in 2019 at, whatever I was, 35 years old. Never bought a brand new driver in my life. So this was like my first experience having a new club and then breaking it and not really knowing what that looked like. So
Especially when
Odd
you got the
experience.
old school clubs like the 905, which would
Still works
survive
great.
the nuclear apocalypse.
yeah, I'll never
New
get rid of
stuff
that thing.
does not.
I still
He's
get.
beat 4 people with it, and it still works. Great.
I was hitting it a couple months ago, and I was getting the same ball speed off that 905 that I currently do with my modern driver.
It's
There you go.
In center
Perhaps-
strikes.
On
Yeah,
center
center
strikes
On-
only.
That's really important.
why
to
the
say.
fitting mattered.
This is why
Otherwise,
yeah.
people are going to think we're full of shit
You miss it,
They already did.
and boy,
Well,
does
yeah,
it
right.
hurt.
for
Yeah.
different reasons.
All right,
Yeah.
so to wrap this up, and Brandon will end up having to help with my bag because I don't actually remember all the models. But what's in your bag now? So I know there's new stuff coming out, but what's in your bag now?
I have Mizuno STZ driver. I actually still have a TaylorMade M5 3-wood from
Okay.
quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
Still haven't found another club to match the ball speed I get off that. But maybe this year, be able to find something. And then I have the 221 Mizuno blades, and then a 3 T24 wedges.
Okay.
Even roll. You got putter.
Even roll putter.
Okay.
I got money taper 130Xs and all the irons
Yep.
for the shaft. So I like the
We
feel
could
the
always
weight.
we could do like a what's in your bag segment.
We could.
We could fill the
Close
whole
up.
what's
That
in the
way we
bag,
can
yeah.
show it off because just
Yeah.
telling people they're not going to know.
And
Well, they can-
for me,
that's
it's
what
definitely
Google's
going to
for.
change this year. I think
Yeah.
You're going to be
everything
changing
will get
things out.
replaced other than the putter.
There you go. That should be its own video.
I
What does
will
Brandon get?
be filming that later.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah,
Brandon fits himself.
that's basically what it will be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. That gets weird. All right.
Me?
Yeah. sh-
So I've got the same TS3 Titleist driver Ventus 7X blue shaft in it. That was the added cost to that club. And then the Nike Dymo 3-wood
From 1970.
with a recycled Tensei driver shaft that I used off of an old one that broke. And it's been pretty effective, so the weighting's good. And then I've got Mizuno Fly High 3 driving iron with the hazardous shaft. And then what did we went to the Project X rifle 6.0s for my iron. So I'm 243s, the cavity backs from Mizuno 4 through 9. And then the T24 wedges, I've got pitch, gap, sand, and lob. And so that's, I don't know if I'm adjusting that or not this year because I tend to cycle things out, with our like staff deals or whatever we get
Yeah.
to kind of basically lease clubs for a season or two and
Yeah.
change things out. So every year Mizuno comes out with stuff, I'm like, no, I'm sticking with it. And then they release new stuff. I'm like, oh, I want to try that. So I've cycled irons most years. I've kept the same exact set year after year just to kind of keep that deal going.
Yeah.
But
I
and then
have
I've played the Vice Pro Plus golf ball for probably 7 years now. That's
Oh,
been
wow.
my
I didn't mention golf.
my
ball.
golf ball
I didn't ask.
that I
mean,
go to. Well, it's equipment.
I guess,
it matters.
I did a golf ball fitting earlier this summer. Tested 8 different golf balls and ended up with the MaxFly CG Tour.
Those are good balls.
All right.
Gave me the best balance all the way across the bag, driver to wedge,
There you
what
go.
I was looking for.
All right. John.
I'm the most out of date with equipment. I haven't really
Yeah.
updated things at all. It's just not been a big priority, but it's not like old. I'm still using the JPX 919s, which is 3 generations ago
Yeah,
I
five-
think.
5 years
4
ago,
of
2019.
JPX. So they're the tours. So
Yep.
that was actually it was the first iteration of its kind.
Right.
Yes.
So the JPX
Which
tour
they now
was
got rid
a
of.
what's
I know.
that?
They're not redoing
Yeah,
the
they're
tour
not
this
keeping
year.
them.
They're
No, which
replacing
is a
it with
shame.
the,
It's such an
S3.
awesome iron.
It
So
is.
it's kind of like imagine it as like a bit of a crossover between a player's blade, but then the JPX lineup was always more about the forgiveness of
Yeah.
added weight on the toe, but the JPX Tour is like really close to a
Modern
player's
muscle
iron.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I honestly have no intentions of changing it, most likely. But there are some other clubs I need to change really soon, like ditch the long iron for now and get into a hybrid. And as far as driver and 3-wood, I'm still using an older ST 180s, I think they are.
Yep.
The driver and the 3-wood, and those have an Atmos black in them, X Flex. And then even older Mizuno S18 wedges as
Yeah.
well, which those are 3 generations old now, I think. So, and then I actually have an even roll putter that's the ER1, which doesn't exist anymore. It was like their original long blade. So it's like, I mean, in golf pro standards, I'm fairly out of date. I don't
Yeah.
update stuff that quickly, and I honestly never will. Like once I find something I like, I kind of stick with it. And,
Right.
And some of that's justified as simply as like I just don't play enough golf to care that much. So,
Fair enough.
But this coming year, I mean, definitely looking at a hybrid replacement of some sorts. Probably looking at a different option for the 3-wood, meaning like maybe replacing that with a 5-wood or something like that. So the highlight this year will be, if I go crazy, it'll be woods and wedges.
Yeah.
The irons will stay the same. I probably won't replace the putter. So
All right.
No real reason to. I've
Yeah.
got the 1.2, which is just the Newport style. So,
yeah, it's a little smaller.
yep.
Yeah.
All right.
So
You?
How about you?
Brandon will have to help me out because I don't remember all my model numbers, but he was asking me earlier. He's like, "Oh, you're talking about this one. Oh, you're talking about this
Yeah.
one. Oh, you're..." So, all right. Driver 4-wood are the TSR3, Titleist TSR3s. The hybrid is Mizuno,
STZ.
that one. My irons, my irons are all the Ping. What did we decide? 430s.
G430s. Yeah.
G430s. Yeah.
440s are this year.
And you really like those?
I do like those. I had Pings before that, but they were just off the rack Pings. Biggest thing they did for me when I got fit, a year and a half, 2 years ago, whenever it was, is I just added weight to everything. Much heavier shafts. I think on the woods they even added a little weight to them.
Made perfect sense with your swing speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, swinging hard's not really my problem.
No.
Yeah. Wedges, I'm on the Cleveland something or others.
RTXs.
That's the ones.
I like your name better. Something or others.
Yeah, it's a little too long for the back of the club, but and then even roll putter, and then I bounce back and forth between the Chrome Softs and the Kirklands.
Yeah.
So I haven't really given
yeah.
a lot of thought to my golf balls. The Kirklands are cost effective,
Yep.
and with my accuracy off the tee, that's important.
So I get
I
this
did not-
question enough. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I didn't mention golf ball quickly. I've been going the non-cost effective route, which is the good old Pro V1X.
Okay,
So-
yeah.
I was going to say I played the
And left dashes specifically. Left dash,
Yeah.
if people don't know, means low spin. For me, typically not helpful because I'm already a low flight hitter with longer clubs. But it is helpful with my wedges because I get so much check spin out of my wedges that a left dash is actually kind of helpful.
Okay.
And for those that don't know, it's the same price. So a left dash is more commonly used on tour
Okay.
versus just like a regular Pro V.
It's the
or
highest
Pro
compressing
V1X.
golf ball in the market. So it's going to be longer than anything. And I went through that
Yeah.
testing phase this year with it and just found when I went from the left dash back to the Vice Pro Plus, what I was always seeking was less side spin, overall reduction in backspin. I produced plenty of that. And I'm just always astounded given just how they started with the Pro Plus, how consistent it is and how accurate it was off the tee. Because I've done the Bridgestones and the Chrome Softs and the TaylorMades. And for me, east-west dispersion is always a concern. And when I did the fitting at Golf MD, it was purely about accuracy. And, to John's point earlier, like in that 45-hour, fitting I did, probably hit 70 drivers at full speed on purpose to go, how big is this miss going to be, basically? And that's how we landed on the Titleist because it was the most accurate. And, there was a couple that were longer. I was like this close to the PX Gen 2 at the time. It was the club face felt amazing. it was just too erratic, and it was very noticeable how much more accurate the TS model is. So I'm just now, 5 years later, could probably go kick the tires on testing some things and see if there's not something newer that would work. But yeah, the golf ball is something that I find, especially with better players, it's just an oversight. They just kind of, I just play the Pro V.
Yeah, I never thought about it.
And I'm like, well, okay, if it's consistent and you know it, great. But you're not optimizing things.
I would say worse than that, they don't have any consistent ball at all.
Yeah, you play
it's
whatever
what
you
they find in the woods, which is like, yes, it's economical, but if you don't narrow down on something, because golf ball changes in feel way more than you think.
And performance.
Yeah, and they perform much more
So
differently
the
than you
100
think.
Chrome Softs I have in a box that a dude found in the woods aren't good?
Potentially not.
Depends
So
on what year they're from.
what people don't understand is golf balls,
Well, we won't get into that tonight.
Nah.
the materials, they do deteriorate. Like
Yeah.
if you store them, if you leave them in the back of your trunk, going from hot to cold all the time, heating and cooling, over time, the performance of the golf ball will change.
Which
And it's
reminds me,
in like 4
Don't
to
leave
6
your clubs
months.
in the trunk.
Yeah, don't leave your equipment in the trunk.
Yeah.
Golf balls, clubs,
Unless you
the
want your
metal
clipping to
expands
fly
and
off.
contracts.
Yeah.
It's going to lead to all sorts of problems. But yeah, golf ball, I had a fitting earlier this year with one of my students. He'd gotten some Callaway Great Big Berthas, I think earlier in the year or last year. Got a really good deal on a used set. But what he was finding was he couldn't get his ball to stop on the green. He's hitting 7-iron into these greens. He's like, it seems like it's going high enough, but the spin isn't just there. So I think I have the wrong shaft, the wrong club or something. And in literally about 15 minutes, I narrowed down that it was actually the golf ball. His strike was solid. He had the right weight of shafts. He was striking it really well that day too. But yeah, his backspin was like 3,300 with a 7-iron.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy.
So I literally just handed him a different golf ball. He was spinning at 6,000.
I was going to
And
say,
then he
for
went
those
back
that
to the
don't
old
know,
one,
that's
and it was
like
like-
half of what you would
Yeah,
want.
that's like 3-wood. That's 3-wood spin.
Yep.
And so it was just he had the wrong fit of golf ball that just wasn't creating spin with
Yeah.
his irons. So he went out and switched golf balls, and it's like, oh yeah, this is way better.
Worth thinking
Yeah, and
about.
because of driver fittings, like spin is always looked at as this thing you want to get down, and that's just totally not true for
Yeah.
most people. And height is often looked at as a bad thing. Like, it's not. Height's a really good thing.
Yeah.
It's just all about how you're getting it.
Optimal height,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the problem with reduced spin is it also, if the side spin has more effect. Backspin helps the ball stay on target and go
Yep.
propel it straight.
Yep.
So side spin is less of an effect. So
Backspin, cancel
yeah.
side spin.
you do get more distance, but you're going to be less
Yeah.
accurate.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily conducive for scoring if you can't control it.
There you go.
If you can never stop a ball on the green, you're always having to chip from the backside.
Right.
That's a problem.
Well, then you need a wedge fitting. So
Or a ball fitting.
Yeah, or a golf ball fitting. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, if any of this made any sense to you whatsoever or piqued your interest, you need to book a nerd session with our friend Brandon over here and go to town. And I will say, I've only done a fitting once, and it was the most fascinating experience ever just because the questions I got asked and seeing the numbers, and like in a couple of years, I will totally do it again. Because it's just such a it's crazy to actually see kind of by the math and by the science what it is that's happening with your swing.
Yeah, and we'll be at the golf show end of February, the 21st
Yeah.
and the 23rd, and hopefully be ready to display some of the new tech coming out that Brandon's been talking about. So
Yeah.
if you want to come see it, and more importantly, get a fitting booked with somebody that knows what they're doing, just come see us at the golf show, Kansas City Golf Show.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's
and if you guys
good
got
stuff.
questions based on stuff we covered in this episode, feel free to just drop a comment either on Instagram or YouTube and let us know if there's some stuff we touched on and you wanted more information on. So that's just it. This is clearly a conversation that could have gone on for another hour and a half.
There's a lot more we could get into.
Yeah.
For Brandon,
Okay,
another 12 hours.
We're going to wrap this episode up right now.
Okay.
I'll save that. I'll save the more technical stuff for my own. I'm going to start some video projects and
Nice.
YouTube stuff. Going
Sounds
more
good,
into
James,
the
to me.
tech
Little
end.
tech talks.
That's
So I'll
good.
save that more for my own Because I could talk tech for hours if you wanted to. But.
That's why you're doing what you're doing.
Tech with Trytek.
And even if you're not like tech oriented or a nerd like me, you can still get fit.
Yeah. You should still get fit. You just might black out in the middle of it. That's all. Yeah.
You'll wake up with the right clubs.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Do make sure you hit subscribe. So close to 100. So close.
We're getting there. Inch across the line.
No, but yeah, make sure you subscribe, share this with your friends, and we look forward to seeing you next episode.